Now, hey guys, can you hear us? um, we're still trying to gather ourselves after that crazy conference. It was an amazing conference, and we're gonna talk with these two presenters who were at the conference, and we're gonna go through. Clearly, I'm not prepared. Sorry, I need to stop trying to read the chat and do an intro at the same time. Anyway, welcome back to the show, guys. I guess everybody can hear me. Tony is back for like the 100th time, and Jackie is back for the second time. They were both presenters at the conference, and it was amazing. We had a blast, and we're going to talk about it in case you weren't there. We're going to just kind of do a little recap and see what comes up. So welcome back, guys.
Thank you. Hello. Thanks for having me back, and thanks for the conference. Thanks for putting on such a good conference, man. It was awesome.
Right. Thank you for coming. You know, it was one of those things where we didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into whenever we said, "Hey, we can do a conference," and it became it became life consuming and overwhelming, but it was all worth it. I mean, I was shocked at what we created and who showed up and how many people showed up, and just, you know, you can plan for the conference, but you can't plan for an experience like that. And I think that's what made it special.
Well, you made it look like you've done it before. I mean, really, it came off largely without a hitch. To be expected for that many people gathering for any reason usually has a host of things go wrong. And really, I mean, it was very, very light for that. I'm getting over a little cold afterwards, and I guess I could call it a hangover. Might as well call it a hangover. I didn't get a lot of sleep. You know, we stayed up at bonfires late and got up early, and I got to meet a lot of people that I've known for a long time, and finally got to meet in person. I hadn't met Neil, Jackie, you know, your husband, and I got to hang out and have coffee with him in the morning. That was awesome. That was a big deal to me. And just to hang out with you guys, right? Yeah. After all we've been through with the book and everything, like just to hang out with you guys. And then my old friend Chris joined me, rode down with me, and I just got to meet a lot of people it was a family thing. I don't want to take all the time. And I know, Jackie, like on our show, I do all the talking, and you're like, after we're done talking, you're like, Tony, can I get a minute? But I want to just say one thing because I thought about this about my presentation afterwards, and I had a little bit of regret. And I just want to set this clear right now in front of everybody that because of the nature of the audience, and, you know, like for the first 2 days there, everywhere I went, everybody was like showing me love, man. It was like being around family. And then hanging out with Jackie, and like I said, Neil and Chris, it was like being around really like family. And while I was presenting, there was humor. I cracked the jokes, and like the whole crowd laughed. It was like there was a lot of back and forth. And when I thought about it after the fact, I thought, you know, if there's somebody that doesn't know me or doesn't know that, and they listen to my story and go see me up there laughing on stage about it, like what happened to me wasn't funny. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't funny what I went through. And I would never, ever be presumptuous to say that, you know, I enjoyed it or whatever I went through during my time. And the reason why I'm at the conference talking is something to be made light of. I just want to set it straight that I was reflecting what the audience was like. I felt like I was amongst family and friends. Like people were being awesome to me, and it was very easy to be lighthearted. So when I look back, I just want anybody that sees it that might not, that might think that I don't take that seriously, because, you know, and plus getting the book over with really exercised a lot of the negative feelings I've always had about what happened to me. Once the book was over, it was like, I'm able to let go of a lot of it. And I don't have to dwell on a lot of the hard parts. I can just tell people, go read the damn book. You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I just wanted to say that. That's all.
Yeah, I think you were feeding off the energy of the room, because that's all it was. It was being like around friends and family, soul family.
Exactly.
And yeah, there's no reason to apologize. I understand where you're coming from, but it was all perfect for the moment, and it felt right. It was nothing awkward about it. And
anyone who was there in person I would assume would know that, but I could see people watching the live stream maybe who they're not thinking about that, you know. That's good to clarify. Definitely.
And then you literally jumped off the stage when you made
it. Yeah. Well, I kind of promised myself I wasn't going to talk about any kind of flu or anything like that. Like I wasn't going to touch on that subject. And when I did, it was too late already. I felt like.
Right. Well, it was amazing. And every time I saw you, you were giving me a hug. I was like, you were like, dude, this is awesome. It was so fun. Jackie, welcome back. I know this was your first time actually speaking live publicly. Obviously, you've done shows and stuff. How was your experience? First time, was that your first conference you've ever been to also?
No, definitely not my first conference, but the first time speaking about experimental programs and abductions live. And it's interesting, when I came on you guys' show the first time, I had like a nervous reaction to talking about it. You know, like when you're finally letting out your truth, there's a lot of internal things that go on. But this time on stage, I just felt comfortable at home. So for me, it was something about helping with Tony's book. I told Tony was like cathartic for me. It was almost like a therapy processing, going through putting his book together. It made it easier for me to speak about it. And then having Neil, my husband, there was like, you know, we kind of joked. I was like, I'm happily married. I have a good business. So I have nothing to lose. You know, there are people who don't talk about it because they have everything to lose. And like just getting there and being like, I'm just going to tell the truth because there's nothing on the line for me. You know, Neil's not going to leave. I mean, I guess he could, but he's probably not going to. He's not going to leave me. My family knows about it. Some of my other family's been involved, and it was I felt lucky, which is a weird thing to say when you talk about like being in the programs or abducted. But I felt lucky to be in a position where it was so low risk to be able to just go there and tell exactly the truth. And the people there were amazing. It really was like being with family. And I have to second Tony in saying you guys really put on a great conference. I would never know it was your first time. It was like you do this every year.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. And
blew us away as well. Right. I mean, we couldn't believe how well it turned out to be and the amazing people that showed up. It was.
Well, Scott Savoy told me, book it and they will come, or however he worded it. But
exactly.
I mean, it's just kind of, you know, what it was.
That's exactly what it was. We just had faith that it was
right. I think we had a lot of ET helpers or guides, whatever you want to say. They really helped pull this thing off, and the protection we had, like the energetic protection there. If you're not paying attention to that kind of stuff and you're not taking the proper precautions, it might not be as great of a time as it could have been, just because from past experiences, other conferences. But Jackie, your presentation was amazing. You would never know it was your first time. You just like, you were a pro up there, very polished, and it was very digestible. It didn't make you sound crazy at all. If you were even worried about that, because you know, my sister was there and she's not really into this stuff, and she was really blown away. It was very convincing. It was a very good presentation.
Powerful. It was amazing. Seriously, you did a phenomenal job.
Oh, thank you. I think we're all beyond worrying about sounding crazy at this stage too. I know this sounds crazy to some people, but if you're versed in this, then you know it is what it is.
Right.
Exactly.
I knew you were going to do really good, Jackie, but it's still like you were I had it was like a sister or a relative that's about to go on stage for this local play, and you're still nervous vicariously. I was like, oh, I didn't want anything bad to happen. And then halfway through, I was like, as if, I mean, God. Made it look easy. But I have a question for Jackie and for you guys, because I think from what I heard while you were on stage, you were talking, you're a medium and people come through, and you had two spirits come through. I don't know the terminology, right? And I've known you for years. I don't know, but you had two separate entities come through, and one of them you had already taken care of. You already contacted and sorted out who it was before you went on stage. But while you were on stage, like on the fly, you were like, there's somebody coming through right now, and made it sound really nonchalant. But afterwards, after the crowd left, there was somebody in the crowd. Is that right?
Yeah. So, we were able to talk. And then I've never had this, but it was like, because there was a line of people wondering if it was them, then I got to do like little micro sessions with people. So there was somebody who just lost his father. And I was like, I just did it. you know, it just did little, okay, this is what they're saying, this is what I'm getting. And I was able to talk to it's hard to be like, no, I'm sorry, that spirit that was coming through wasn't for you. Now go. So I said, okay, let's see what is. And then I just had these little mini sessions with every single person that queued up to see if it was for them. So that was kind of, I don't know, I've never done that. I didn't even know if I could. Sometimes I have like a ramp up time to get connected to the spirit. So that was kind of nice. But I did find the person who I was able to connect with the human, with the spirit that was like on stage. Like, you have to find this person for me. And we chatted for half an hour after.
That's always mind blowing. Like I said, I've never been a skeptic, but I'm amazed at how nonchalant, like how quickly and easy it just comes through. It's like
honestly, me too. Sometimes, me too. I'm like, is this really happening? This, like, by name with these details. It's still, you know, I'm still a human in the experience sometimes too.
Right. Yeah, that was pretty amazing. I actually forgot about that. I'm glad you brought that up, Tony.
There were a lot of synchronicities there. I mean,
well, let's talk about the red macaw, Tony. For the people who weren't there, they don't really understand what happened with this bird showing up. And I'll let you tell the whole story. But that was pretty powerful. I mean, when I saw you walking around with that bird on your shoulder, you had tears in your eyes, and I didn't realize what was going on until you explained it to me. But for the people who weren't there, can you explain to them what happened? And you know,
in the back of my mind, I'm like, everybody knows because they read the book. I'm thinking this entire room of 200 people must have read the book and know exactly what I'm talking about. When I was walking through the cafeteria, you know, through the breakfast hall with a macaw on my shoulder. But you know, I mean, it's a cliff note in the book. Really, it's not a big long story. But for me personally, that was like and I kept thinking about it. I realized kind of on the way home that during the moment, what happened was I was sitting at breakfast. It was the morning that I was going to talk. And remember, I had my laptop out and you sent me a message about that one crew, like, watch out for those guys. And so I moved over and I'm like, put everything away. And I really wasn't satisfied because with my slideshow that morning, I was kind of putting it together and I was not satisfied with it. I wanted to add more new stuff for you guys than the same show. And I literally was thinking about it, and I was I was sitting over by, not the Connect 4, but the other one. And I was sitting there going, I hope I do good. I hope this is good enough. And I look up and there's you know, I'm 25 feet away from a scarlet winged macaw. And I went, and it was like an absolutely like a religious moment for me. It was, I stopped everything and just went straight to it. I think I was like mid conversation with somebody who was rude and walked off. And I walked up to him, he said, here, you can hold it. It didn't even take 2 seconds. And he goes, here, you put him on you. And I did. And when he was like on my arm, I just like broke into tears. And then the film crew showed up, you know, the people from Amsterdam, that Linda and those guys started filming me, and I kind of got it together, girlfriend. And but for people who don't know, I promised myself I wasn't going to cry on Journey to the Truth again either. So
what you promise.
People don't know, in my book I talk about it, and like I literally have a scarlet ring macaw tattoo. Like I have it inked on me, and I don't get tattoos for no reason. Like I got a lot of my tattoos. I started in Hawaii, and it's a spiritual religious thing to the Polynesian culture to tattoo yourself. And so I treat tattoos with that regard. You don't get a random tattoo. You get something that has a deep spiritual meaning. And I have my arm is like a giant scarlet winged macaw.
Yep.
And during the time in Peru, I was broken. I just left a trauma-based mind control program and was an emotionally broken child. And there were times when I wanted to play with the other kids that were there. You know, I talked about it in the conference. I'm trying to go quick here. And I wasn't allowed to. And I just felt like I was a cursed kid. And my handler, for lack of a better word, my chaperone, Manuel, was the only guy that could speak English. So he took care of me while I was in Peru at that time, in a 20 and back. So in a separate kind of timeline from my life. And we were birdwatch all the time. So that kind of comes with the territory when you live in the Amazon jungle, that you begin to birdwatch because many beautiful birds come and go. And he always said the most beautiful one that comes there is the scarlet winged macaw. And anyhow, then later on, months later, he got into an altercation with a guy, and I said, why don't you just beat him up? And he said, I can't beat him up. He's got a blessed life. He's blessed. You know, the guy's lucky. That was his thing. He was always lucky. And I was like, you're way bigger than him. Just punch him. You know, we had like a big brother, little brother kind of relationship. And he goes, I can't. And I said, does that mean my life is cursed? Because I'm definitely not lucky. You know what I mean? By how I was living. And he said, I don't know. You know, it's too early to tell. He said, we don't know yet. And I said, well, how am I going to test it? He said, you can test fate to see if you're blessed. Like, they have a belief down there. I don't know. I'd like to go down there. I'd like to go to Peru and have this conversation, to be perfectly honest. But so we said it. I said, well, if I see the most beautiful bird, if I get to see a scarlet-winged macaw before I leave, then I'll take it as a sign that I have a blessed life. And if I don't, then I won't. And he said, and the scarlet-winged macaw does not have a migration. So, but it does show up in that village for only a couple weeks a year, right after the rainy season. Like, he knew that. Everybody, he said, you're most likely to, you can see them all year round, but you're most likely to see them in the first 2 weeks after the rainy season. And I did not see them. Other people were seeing them, but I didn't see them. And I took it as a sign that I was cursed, right? Because, I mean, like, I was like living like a foster kid, and I'd been tortured already at that point and seen some really bad stuff already at that. You know, I was like 12 years old at that time, 12 and a half years old. And it was like only a couple of days before I was going to leave that I was going to be shipped out. And I saw a flock of them. And so during that time, like, I saw them they landed right in the street in town, and I saw them, and he saw them from down the street and ran up to see if I saw them. Did you see them? I said, yeah, I did, you know, like, and so that was like a big moment to me. In all of those years when things bad happened to me, I referred to that moment. Like, that's kind of was like something that helped me get through bad things that happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if everybody does this, I'm weird or something, but like, you have to have an anchor into believing that your life is worth living, that you're a good person, that something good's going to happen. You have to have an anchor for that when misfortune happens. Like, some people shake off misfortune. It's easy. It's like amazing. I'm not like that, you know. But during that time, I was always like referred like this. I saw the macaw. I'm going to get through this. I saw them. I saw it. And so when I got my memories back in 2015, I remembered all that. I went and looked it up. I went, oh my God. And if you look on Google Earth, you know how they have the pictures, like a lot of the town squares has paintings of the macaw. Like, that's a big deal to them down there still. I was sending them to Jackie back when we were writing the book. But I wanted the original cover to the book to be a scarlet. I had commissioned who you referred to me, Tyler, Katrina Vogel, to do the first. And then everybody I showed it to, they said, man, it makes the book look like fiction, because, you know what I mean? It's a abstract drawing. It's what? It
was an illustration.
Yeah, it's like an illustration. So it looks like what you'd put on a fiction book. So we chose just a basic, like a Starfield for the book. Yeah. And then, like I said, I was just in the middle of thinking about if my presentation was going to be okay. And the first time since that time in Peru, whatever X amount, 50 years later, there's a scarlet-winged macaw in the room. And it just, it set me in my tracks. Like, it's still, and so I went and scrapped. I went back got my computer back out and scrapped the slideshow and added in the Peru slides. And I wanted to mention what's gone on in that town since then. I kind of updated it and kind of just winged it. You know what I mean? I didn't have a real professional PowerPoint with animations. Like, I wasn't as good as Jackie's. And I want to say, but before I change the subject, I just want to say that for me, it was a deeply spiritual thing. So it was a huge omen for the whole entire conference that there was a macaw there. And I asked him to bring it in. And I guess there was an issue with one of the guys. I didn't want anything. But I said, yes, if you want, please, I would love to have the macaw in the room while I'm talking. But Jackie, did you add the pips on your timeline? Because after you saw mine at the very bottom, it looked like you added the little pips on your slide after.
I don't know what you mean by pips.
There's a little bracket on the bottom of your timeline. You had them broke out in the different places.
Yeah.
And on the bottom, did you add that after the fact? I'm curious. I'm dying to know.
No, that was like a formatted timeline I found in the design program I use. But okay, I have to tell you something. I was debating one slide in my presentation because I was kind of like, do I want to get into Hollywood and the strategic placement of ETs and certain, occult characters in children's books and stuff. And I was like standing outside my room and this bird bomb dived, got in my hair, flew around in my hair, and then flew off. And I was like, just standing there. And I was like, did you just see that? And Neil was like, yeah, that bird was like trying to steal your hair.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, fuck it. I'm putting the slide in. I'm taking it as a positive omen. But it was weird. The birds, there was something going on with the birds.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
It like got in my face and my hair standing outside of the cabin.
You know, the very last night we were there, I went back to the room and I was getting ready to come out by the fire and I was going to grab this crystal that was on the table. And it was a big piece of Lemurian quartz. And I put it in my pocket, but I had gym shorts on. I'm like, man, if it falls out, it's dark, it's muddy, you know, I don't want to lose it. So I put it back on the table and went out for the bonfire. The next morning when I was checking out of my room, it was gone. And I thought, because the lady had already started cleaning the room, I thought, did she take that crystal? You know, I'm sitting here like, well, she needed it better than I did because it was gone. And I'm looking for it. Looked all through the room, packed up. I went out to my car to load my stuff up, and it was in my car.
Wow.
It was a crazy, dude. It was like, it took me back just like what Tony said. And maybe like I've ran it through my head 100 times. I'm like, did I bring it out there? But I didn't. I remember.
No memory of.
I remember taking it out of my pocket and putting it back down. I was like, no, I'm going to leave it here because I don't want to lose it. And anyway, it's just it's like it seemed like a lot of people were having weird stuff like that happen. It was really interesting. And actually, if I can pull it up, somebody got a really good picture of a UFO too across the river.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Wow, on site.
Yeah, yeah.
It was it was like one of the cloudy nights too.
Right. Yeah, it was like a lighted
during the conference. Yeah.
Right. I'm not really prepared for that, but if I find it, I'm gonna throw it up on the screen. So what else happened? Oh, we had to kick the feds out.
Yeah, those two guys.
That went well.
Yeah.
I would say this, that no matter what, even if they were guys that were not there to do harm, they were not doing the right thing in the right way.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it was kind of a no-brainer. They weren't being proper about it. And there's a way to go about things, especially when there's other people in the audience involved and people talking. So, you know, I am fully aware that the check is in the mail, that there's going to be a hit piece on me eventually. You know what I mean? Like you can only go so far doing anything. You can be a dancer or a singer, and you're only going to make it so far before you get attacked, you know? So this, we saw what happened with James Rink at the 5D events, how they came in and set him up with a fake interview. And then they went on, all of a sudden they had like 80,000 views in like 2 days. So you see that this stuff, slander sells or whatever, if it's, you know what I mean, a coordinated attack on the information, because they do not want us to really share this info as well as we're doing. So you can kind of see it coming. Exactly. And I think you may have dodged a big bullet by doing that.
Well, they already interviewed me, and I had already signed a little waiver thing, and I regret doing that. But a whole synchronicities all over the place, right? So we get interviewed all the time, but he was asking questions like, do you think feds ever show up at these types of events? And I said, you know, and then he was asking, do you think there's any feds here right now? Then he asked, do you guys ever play Spot the Fed? And he said, and then he's like, do you guys ever take precaution for this type of stuff? And it was real sketchy. And an individual, one of these guys had left their phone laying on the table, and somebody at the conference found it. And he was trying to figure out whose phone it was. They had a case, and there was the guy had 3 IDs. So not that makes him a Fed, but with the fact that somebody found that, and then he was asking me all these questions, and I've already had to warn them twice because so many people were complaining about them just having like a negative energy. It was tough to have to, like, I've never really had to kick anybody out of an event before, but I think it was the right thing for sure.
It's hard to be like that when a lot of people in the crowd were heavy hitters as far as energy work goes. You know what I mean? Like you had a lot of people that were very gifted psychics.
That's
like
what
every 30 feet.
They kept trying to talk their way back in, and that's what I finally had to tell them. I was like, listen, this is an entire crowd full of empaths and psychics, and they're all seeing a dark energy around you, and they don't get a good vibe. Bottom line, in particular, females, you're making a lot of the females uncomfortable by what you're doing. So it was one of those things that you can't expect, but hey, we dealt with it and moved on from that.
Yeah.
We're going to do a better vetting process next time before the conference, because
right.
It was just the email, it's hard to vet somebody through email properly, but we're going to make sure next time we're a little more thorough so that doesn't happen.
I can't even send this picture to my computer to put it on the screen. Oh, well, anyway. Yeah, definitely a better vetting process. So I know you guys are gonna, you're probably tired of me asking you guys to tell this story, but it's my favorite story. And I don't think I've ever actually got you two on the show together to tell this story, the water story about Jackie having a vision of Tony drowning. Would you guys, for the audience who doesn't know that story, would you guys mind sharing that? Because I think it's really important to your connection. And I think is, obviously a higher purpose as to why you guys are working together and doing the books together.
Wait, let me go first.
Okay, and then I'll correct you.
Yep.
So when I was very young, my parents wanted to have a second home in northern Michigan, or and we would take trips up and go camping up here, and where I live now. And we went camping to a campground, and I went out on a raft with my sister, and one of the girls that was like camping there as well made friends with my sister. I think I was 7. That means my sister would have been 12. And we were on a raft, and I did not know how to swim at the time. And so, but we were on an inflatable raft, and boys started flirting with them, and they were throwing mud at us and stuff. It was myself, my sister, and another girl. I think her name was like Candy or something like that, on the raft. And then they threw a dead fish at us, and then they came and knocked us over. And I started drowning. I went to the bottom of the lake, which was pretty deep, and I couldn't swim. And my sister was having a hard time already getting back out for herself. And I kind of gave up and sunk down and literally was drowning. And I saw basically Jackie go, "Get it together." Something like, "Get it together. You can't just get up." And I started swimming, and I got to the top, and I grabbed my sister's hair and pulled myself up and got a breath of air and let go and kind of sunk again. But then my dad eventually got to me and saved me and took me back. But when I got back to shore, Candy took off, and my sister goes, "Who's Jackie?" Because I was like, "Jackie told me to swim." I kept asking about her. I forget exactly the verbiage, but it was like, June's like, "Who's Jackie? What are you talking about? That was Candy." I was like, "No, not her. Where's Jackie?" And I remember that. Like, that's something that stuck out in my head. Fast forward to, when was that, Jackie, that when we tried?
Like 18 months ago.
Fast forward to 18 months ago, and we were, you can take over from here if you'd like.
Well, we were trying one of the gateway process from the Monroe Institute, because we wanted to meet in we'll call it the astral world. We wanted to meet outside of our bodies to see if I'm all on Earth, or there's part of me still in outer space, basically, is what we were trying to do. So we agreed to meet on the moon. So we did it at the same time, and I started my astral projection to the moon, and I got there and I saw Tony, and I said, "Oh, we made it. Let's go. Let's travel together to see if we can locate me anywhere else." And Tony was stuck like lead. And I was like, "Tony, come on, you got to come with me." And I couldn't get his immaterial body to move. It was still really heavy. And then all of a sudden I shifted in, and I saw a raft, the head going up and down above water. And I was still saying to him, "Tony, come on, you could do this. Come on," in the water. And then, I didn't know what was happening, but I was like, okay, I can't take him with me now, but I'm still going to go because I'm already in this state. And so I left, and I went and did my own meditation session out in the cosmos without Tony. So in a way I was like, oh, this wasn't successful. Well, then when I called him the next day is when I said, Tony, were you ever drowning in a raft as a young boy? And at first, Tony, you were like, no. And I was like, yeah, it was like the raft was tipped and I saw you go down and up. And I kept telling you, like, come on, come on. And then he said, yes. And he told me the story that he just shared with you guys. And then the interesting thing is that I wasn't born yet when that happened. But it wasn't like I had a vision of it. It was like I was there. It was like I was in the moment and I was telling Tony, come on, come on.
You time traveled essentially.
Yeah.
So
astrally. Mm-hmm.
So
right. That's amazing.
That's amazing.
And we skipped a lot. We went from me camping to being on the moon and astral projecting. So I just want to fill in when you talk about, we're talking about, so what I was doing in the beginning, what her and I were doing was researching when the time that I was in Inuker and the program that I was in, which was Project Real Flame. I found the paperwork for and the funding for Project Real Flame, which went into Project Center Lane, which went into Project Gateway. And then it turns out
which admit to using children as long as you get consent without defining consent. I have to add that. Go ahead.
Yeah, they had children in they admitted having children and using children in near-death experiences, and they had profound results. Like, I'm not going to drop the names of the corporations involved, but it's all public knowledge. Anyhow, the document from the Gateway, the CIA, basically, there were a few documents. I have the PDFs. I share them with people openly. But there was a report back to Fort Meade, and then there was a report back to the Army in general. I think there was a colonel that got the report, and it summed up the tech. And we went over that, and I was like, I think this works, because we were using it, and this is exactly how I remember it when I was in Inuker, and this stuff works. Let's try it. And so now with on my show, there's a tier on my show where there's a group that we get together and use it, and it's basically going into higher focus levels. It uses some Monroe Institute blended with a few other things, meditative way of going into a like a higher focus state, which is what Jackie said as astral projecting. Say it's the same thing, it's just different verbiage, but basically just on the cusp of sleep, and like we're a lucid dreaming form, which she's like super good at it because she's already psychic anyway. You know what I mean? Like for me, it took several times, and then I tried it by the Gateway by myself when I was in kind of a hard place financially after I moved to Michigan from Hawaii. And it worked. And the thing is, I got results from it. So I wanted to try it for her. And at the time, we were researching her timeline on the things that fragmented memories that she had. And I said, well, let's try this and see if we can we'll just get a read, and maybe you're up there, or maybe you're not. And do you want to say what we concluded out of that? Because I had a good feeling that you were still up there.
Yeah, I've asked myself that before in a regression, and my answer to myself was, you are not yet ready for the answer to that question. So,
which kind of is an answer within itself anyway.
Kind of seems like a yes, because why would they just say no? Exactly.
But this soul's ability the timelessness of the soul and the actual ability to bilocate in other timelines, or, because we experience it in the SSP and experimental programs, these forced splits of consciousness. So you're bilocating and unnaturally, but the soul's ability to do that is actually why I helped Tony with the first book, because there's more about that in the second book. So people don't know that. The first book, I was like, let me get this out of the way. Let me help you get this out of the way, because I want book 2. Because I'm not going to say much more. Tony can, but
I think book 2 is kind of like your idea. I'm getting a little feedback here, but the second book is a lot more about, I guess, a spiritual take on things, whereas the first book is kind of like just the first book. It's my hope that you can take it and read it and research it and lead yourself to other things that I found. Like, you can look up times and places in the book, names, places, and dates, and research it on yourself and come out with more stuff. Like, I keep finding stuff that supports my claims. So there's that. So that's kind of like a forensic version, and getting it all off my chest and me saying, here, just read the book. I don't need to tell you the story of what they did to me, of being tortured. Just read the book. It's pretty no holds barred. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't really pull a lot of punches with the book. You read it, it's a lot of people couldn't finish it. So the second book is, that's why Jackie also you stood up and said, when is your second book going to be done, Tony? When do you expect it to be released? I've already scrapped it a couple of times. Really, I've already read quite a bit and then scrapped it, wrote quite a bit and scrapped it. But I'm still, like, we published Series Colony Cavalier. We uploaded to Amazon on December 31st, 2021. So the next day, first day of this year, is when it really came live on Amazon. And it's my hope to do the same thing with this book, you know, on the December 31st of this year, so that next year it's another book, and then I'll do another one after that and be done, hopefully. But it's not going to be as painful as Series Colony Cavalier was painful, man. And you know what I mean, to write. It was painful. And so this one isn't like that. There are some bumpy parts to it, but by and large, it's more of a numbness and kind of a feeling of spirituality at the end. It's kind of like my experience on the return from what happened was something that gave me an insight into, I guess, things that I personally believe we all are, that we aren't unaware of. That's it. So,
right. Well, we're looking forward to that.
In a nutshell, yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
Were you going to add to that, Jackie?
No.
Oh.
Yes, but I'm not going to. No, we're live.
But just it.
No, I was just, well, you know, I shared in my presentation that when I finally started talking to my family about it, there were things everyone knew happened and remembered and no one was talking about. And I wondered if Tony's had any experiences like that recently.
Right. So Mother's Day, I don't know who's watching in the family, and right. So I talked about it in my presentation. I forgot I did, but I did. I talked about, somebody asked me a question like, you know, I forget the question, but I was talking about my mom. Who knows in your family? And I said that I tell everybody openly except for my mom. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want my mom to know what I went through because it was horrible. And she's the kind of woman that'll blame herself, and she'll find some way to blame herself, like she should have done something to stop it from happening or whatever, you know, like that's just, she's got a strong maternal instinct. She's that kind of mom. And so after I got home from the conference on Saturday and then drove out to my mom's for the first time since the book has been published to see her on Sunday for Mother's Day. And we went out to dinner, and lo and behold, when I walked into my mom's house, hadn't been there in a while, and I'm looking through her books. And I sit down and I'm like, oh, hey, Ma, how's it going? She's getting ready, and my daughter is with me, and they're all hugging and everything, and my brother's there, Tara's there, and I'm looking around. I go into the bathroom and I'm looking at her books at her nightstand where she's reading, and I'm like, no, I don't see the book here anywhere. And I sat down, and it was she was like crocheting, and under her crocheting thing my book was popping out. So my sister bought her a copy of my book. And so then we go to dinner. So then I act like nothing happened, so we go to dinner and we go back, and I drop in her office. So, well, we got to get going. It's like a 2-hour drive home. And she goes, well, before you leave, I want you to sign my book. And I was like, like, man. So I get it out and I look at the bookmark where she's at, and she's in Seattle, in the worst part of the book, like the absolute worst. And she sits and I sign it, and I wrote her a thing. I sent it. I took a picture of it and sent it to Jackie. So, and I told her in the signature, I said, Mom, I had hoped that you wouldn't know about any of this. But in this grand scheme of things, I'd like to think that it all worked out some way, that some positive came out of it. And, I love you. Then she said, it's hard for her to read. And she didn't know that I went through all that. And she remembered that time when I was taken. She remembered the weirdness around it. She said, I remember that. And I didn't think that you went through all that. And she said, it's very hard for me to read this. And everybody cried. The whole family teared up, and we all cried. And, I gave her a big hug, and then we went home. That was that. So I haven't talked to her since, but that was like, that was like a big deal, Wow. Of all the people in the world to not know my story, you know what I mean? Like my high school principal, I'd rather him not think I'm crazy or anything like that. But my mom, I wanted to protect her from the pain that I went through during that time. And so But the truth is the truth, man. The bottom line is I'm not making it up. It's the truth. So it's what I remember. It stands out every time I go to test it against something, it wins the test, and it keeps the what I remember keeps panning out. So the truth, I'd rather have the hard truth than a comforting lie. And even to my mom, who frankly is woman enough to handle it.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
For one, just sharing that story in itself is healing. Is healing. Getting past all this, it's just one thing you don't have to hide anymore and worry about. So
exactly.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's a big moment, man. Good for you. I'm glad. Everything happens for a reason, and yeah, I feel like now you can that's another aspect that you can heal and move on from. That time whenever that she remembers when you coming back. I remember you telling, like, in your story, correct me if I'm wrong, but your dad would say things like, I want my son back or something like that.
Yeah.
Was that same time that she was remembering?
Yeah. In the years after, in the next couple of years, there was a lot of weird stuff that happened in those couple, I was like 10 till 12. That it was weird. Like I was a weird kid. I'd wake up in the moonlight saying stuff like, like I was sharing the trauma as it happened to myself somewhere else. And so it was weird. And then like the Fauntleroy ferry story, like we went to the Mackinac Island and we were going to ride the ferry. And I said, I want to ride the Fauntleroy ferry. And so that was like, shoot, back then there's no internet. I didn't get corrupted and see this on late night TV or something. It's like, I didn't have access to that. I find out later that the Fauntleroy ferry was what I wanted to ride when I was in Seattle to get the hell out of there.
Right. So that's what
there was a lot of other stuff. Yeah. I mean, it was just like it's like anybody that comes and that I've worked with, seriously, out of everybody that has contact literally across the board. And I welcome anybody to email me if it's different, but everybody has 1,000 little one-line things that support what they're saying, but don't define what they're saying, if that makes sense. Like there's not a silver bullet. There's not something that's tangible. You go, look here, I got this on my 20 and back. I got this on Mars. It says Mars. Yeah. None of that. There's nothing like that. The people don't have that, but people have stuff like that. The Fauntleroy ferry. People have things like that. Check like how in the hell, like Jackie when I'm like me asking my sister, where's Jackie? She helped me. You get what I'm saying? Like what is that? What is that? There's a million things like that in all of our lives that don't make sense, and especially in contactees.
Right.
Exactly. And like the fact you knew the salt was on series before it was ever made public, and then years later it came out, and you're like, how would I have possibly known that?
How could I have taken a random, not only that, but stand my ground with it? Like when I got challenged, when NASA originally said it was different, But I mean, there's just lots of little things, and everybody has those, and that's really who I get flooded with. I think we're going to get, I've had a handful of people that say, like, after they saw me at the conference, that they want to speak publicly now so we're going to get a handful of people.
We've been getting the emails. There's people lining up ready to tell their story, and unfortunately there's a vetting process that has to take place. We can't just like, come on,
You can't pass the mic to everybody. You got to have something to substantiate. It's hard to do now because so much information's already been shared, but it's not impossible.
Right. And Jackie, Tony got up and asked you when your book was coming out also. Are you comfortable with sharing anything about that?
About my book?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've started it. I'm in conversations with 2 publishing companies and then still deciding if I want to just self-publish or not. It'll be a combo of medium stories and my experience with what I call my guides, but it's an ET looking race that abducted me when I was a kid and has come back around and actually helps me with my sessions. I don't know how much experimental programs I'll get into in the book. My interest has always been about the timelessness of the soul, the ability to connect to your soul or to other souls or sources to get information to have the best life possible. And the truth is, the programs are dark. It doesn't really bring in a lot of healing or helpful information to talk about them unless you are another experiencer and it's going to help you walk your own path.
Right.
The book, I really want to focus more on how big our souls are and what's really going on and how we don't really die, and how I think we can shift our awareness into other realms, but then connect with awarenesses that are in other realms. So, I mean, it's not done. People ask me all the time, are you going to talk about, your experience in the programs? But I haven't had the inspiration to. It hasn't felt like fun to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, helping Tony get his book out gave me permission to sort of let my own rest. I'm not exploring new memories. I'm not looking for answers anymore. It's just like, yeah, this happened. I'm never going to understand it all.
Yep.
And it kind of gave me permission to focus on what I think I came into this incarnation for.
Wow. That's actually, I'm glad you said that. As far as not digging up any more memories, I think that's important for everyone listening. Guys, if you don't have memories coming back naturally, I mean, this would be my advice just after speaking with so many whistleblowers and survivors. I wouldn't go digging. I wouldn't go digging unless it's just happening naturally and you're finding yourself dealing with this stuff. Because maybe that stuff is suppressed for a reason, and it might not benefit your life's path. And maybe we're not supposed to know, even though we do want to know if we were part of these programs or not. At the same time, it could really throw your life into a spiral if you're not prepared for what you're getting yourself into. I don't know. Would you agree with that, Tony?
Absolutely. It's not. A lot of people don't realize that they begin to get bleed through memories, but you're another person when you're in a 20 and back. I'm talking about specifically like this tech. You're taken and you live professionally and do 20 years of a career return program. I do that about that. I hope Will's watching because he does the quote unquote Will. In the career return program, you're a different person. That person has different memories. It has different training. It has different friends. It has a different everything. And it has different opinions on the same thing. Even though you're the same exact person, your memories are different. So you arrive at different, and those people, a lot of them don't want to be remembered. And so you have to honor that. You have to honor your own wishes. It's not your higher self, it's yourself. You have to honor the wishes of yourself that are made. And a lot of people don't, they're like happy that they're going to be deleted. They're going to have their memories. A lot of people are happy about it. And so, but people still get the bleed through memories and go, and your natural assumption is to go, what is this? And then you start hearing about it from people like me or other whistleblowers that come forward, and you go, I think that's exactly what happened to me. Mm-hmm. How do I get more of this? Because, it's like a mystery, that you must be solved. What happened to me? Because it is a big part of your persona. And so it can be dangerous, what I mean? Especially if you don't have a lot of people subconsciously don't want to remember. And so the memories can get dots connected and be inaccurate. I think that you have to build up a good repertoire, a good story, a good timeline to where you know enough about it for it to make sense to somebody that knows nothing about it before you should speak about it. That's right. All I would say.
Would you, I said this to Neil when going through like what I wanted to share and what I didn't. First of all, you can never cover everything in an hour or 2 hour presentation, but I feel like for every sentence that I can currently share publicly, there's a sentence that I can't talk about yet, or I don't ever want to talk about publicly. And I'm saying that meaning there are things that are easy to share with a crowd or an audience. And there are things that you go through or you do when you're in the programs that I can't bring myself to say publicly because it was me. And it's like, I don't know if I'm giving this words right, but there's an element of shame to it, of like, I don't want to talk about that part of my experience to people, because when you really dig up enough and connect to it and it's you have a lot of shame to process usually in these kinds of things. So I always say that for every sentence someone's sharing publicly, there's a sentence that they're not willing to or will never talk about publicly. Would you agree, Tony?
There's absolutely a great deal that I don't talk about publicly, especially in the book. At the end of the book, the whole, like Nikki, we mentioned her as a cliff note. There was a lot of stuff that happened there that's cut out of the book. There's a ton of stuff that happened there that is really none of your guys' business. I mean, not to be rude, but basically, you know what I mean? Like there's things that we decided, like, look, this is like personal stuff.
Right. And if it's not going to help, if it's not going to help disclosure or whatever, it's like, what's the point, you know?
I think that I put a lot of that stuff in. I put a lot of the culture from up there because, and well, for one, I had the cart in front of the horse. Like my testimony was on in a 5-hour special with Dr. Sala before I even realized what I was doing. It was already online and had 100,000 views before I went, oh, oops, I shouldn't have never said that. You know what I mean? Like, wow, oops, I might not have wanted to say that. So, but it's part of the evidence, and you know what I mean? Like, there's a whole different kind of Wild West about it up there. Everybody's aware that they're going to get their memories erased. Everybody's aware that whatever happens to your body is not going to be an issue. If you go up there and contract some disease or get tattoos or you're not going to get pregnant. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot, everybody's aware of it. So there's, especially at the end of the 20 years, there's a very barnstorming, caution to the wind kind of lifestyle. When we knew when somebody was at the end of their tour, there was like a party, but they just didn't care. You know, because I'm going back, I'm not going to forget it anyway. So what do I care? Yeah. And so the culture is based like that. It enables that. And then on top of that, productivity is king rather than morals or anything else. So sexuality was kind of helped keep on there to help to push along productivity. So there's a lot of there's a lifestyle up there that is basically not, kind of taboo for us down here. And so that's where it's at. And I think we're seeing in the name of disclosure, them blending it to our kids. Like they're really pushing, you know what I mean? Like the whole gender thing, the whole gender identity, like you can decide you're a man now, you can decide you're a girl next year. It's no big deal. Like that's kind of a bleed through of what the programs are like, really. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, I'm not saying it like it's a bad thing, but it's the reality of the programs is different than the reality we have down here.
Right. And so, well, sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to touch also that I had somebody email me, was a member of my Patreon show, a guy, and he said one time in an interview, they said, and I said, well, how would you like it if you woke up and all of a sudden remembered that you were a serial killer? Tyler, I'm asking you, you personally, okay. How would you like it if tomorrow you woke up and all of a sudden you remembered murdering hundreds of people? Right? It would hurt. What if you woke up and all of a sudden you remembered that you lived 10 years as a homosexual? Right? And so I had a guy, he was a homosexual. He wrote me and he said, I was hurt and I canceled my account because you made it sound like it was a bad thing. And I said, I wrote him back and I apologized. I said, look, it's nothing homophobic about it. I said, I meant it as big of a shock. Like imagine if you as a homosexual woke up and you were a heterosexual for 10 years, how shocking that would be. You know what I'm saying? That your entire identity that you've grown into now in this reality on earth here, your entire identity, all of a sudden you get these vivid memories of having a completely different opposite identity of what you are. And so it has nothing to do with like being homophobic or anything, but I'm saying that this is a reality of people getting their memories back. There's a lot of people get their memories back and go, whoa, and once you get the memories back, you can't put it back in the bottle. You can't re-forget what they've done. You're not going to go through the deleting process again. Once you get these memories back, people get memories and they want more and more and more. And then all of a sudden they get something back that they can't re-forget and they would rather not know. And so, and like Jackie, we talked about some of the things that you have, like there are personal things that I went through up there that are, like, I don't want to re-forget them, but I also don't want to share them either. There's a lot of things that, I mean, the whole thing was like shameful for me, really, top to bottom. I mean, but a lot of people have that experience.
And Daryl James, he was told by his CO, his commanding officer, that if he said, I forget what the percentage was, but if people come back and they allow them to have their memories, they all end up committing suicide within 6 months.
6 months, yeah.
Yeah, if they're not memory wiped, because it's too much. It's so too traumatic. Much to handle.
Yeah.
That's why I was bringing up the whole thing. Like, if you're not just having memories come back naturally, don't dive into it. Were you wanting to say something, Jackie? You look like you have something to say.
No. I think we covered it. It's basically like what Tony said. You can and likely will remember things that you might not even be able to integrate with who you are today. And those are hard because you can't put them back into the forgotten file.
I think the people so I have a theory, like the people who are remembering, obviously it's part of your soul's contract. You probably signed up to, remember, to, like, my theory is, like, before you even came to Earth, part of your contract was, I'm going to be abducted into the program so I could come back and disclose it so we can heal that and move on for this time, this great awakening. And I feel like that's why we have all these people come forward. There's a wave of guys all sharing similar information about these terrible things that are happening in space, underground, everywhere. I do have another theory. I think that we're going to get a second wave of people coming, which this is a good news, in my opinion, of people who are going to be recalling memories from a more benevolent program, a program that has been working on the side of humanity, that was done with consent. And I think the future of disclosure as far as SSP goes won't be so traumatic. And we're going to start learning about the lighter side of things. I don't know if you guys feel the same way about that, but
I think it's the same as history. So when you hear some stories of World War II, of people that were in World War II, they're horrible. They're traumatic and horrible. There's millions of people that went through great trauma. There's other people that went through World War II and World War II. There's other people that lived during that time that, had a better time of it. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't have the words. I'm not saying it right, but basically it's the same thing with the programs. There's people like me that went up there and had a great deal of trauma. There's other people that went up there and did a great deal of good. And so there have been others. There have been others that have come forward that had people silence them with stories like that. So I'll just leave it at that. There's been people that have been public that we've already heard from that had good things to say, and then had people in the community very hawkishly shut them up. So hopefully that'll stop. That'll come to it. There's a wave of people coming, like you said, like there are thousands of people that have memories, whether or not they're called to speak public and sit on Journey to Truth with us and tell their story is a different thing. Like I said, it was never my intention. It's just that this was the path. Speaking publicly about it was the only kind of outlet I had for it. So I was already begun before I realized what I was doing, and it was too late.
Right.
So here we are. But not everybody wants to talk about it publicly, but a lot of people do. And I think we'll get some good stuff. The long and short of it is that space is an endless thing, and there's a lot of access to it. And the reality is that we're very advanced. What's going on up there? The corporations have had their way with it, and it's time for them to scoot over and let society in a humane way. It's just that simple.
Right.
That's where we're at.
Yeah. And it's happening. We got literally the ISS catching space fleets on its feed now. A few separate occasions. We're getting entire fleets of. Undeniable. It's like, okay, like it's time. Like they just can't keep the lid on it anymore. The Halo series, if you guys have watched that yet, it's like you're watching the Secret Space Program bundled into a series on Amazon Prime. It's unbelievable. It has the most SSP disclosure I've seen in one place.
It has the cars, Jackie.
It does.
Yeah, they have a few scenes of the cars like you described in there.
Exactly.
There's a few other things. Not exactly, no, but basically the same thing. And I'll tell you the thing about Halo. So like I'm a little freaked out that I've seen every episode like 5 or 6 times. Like I'm glued to it.
Did you watch the newest one?
That's tonight. I'm gonna watch it tonight.
It's
like
awesome.
When we get done here, I'm gonna go in there and turn it on.
Dude, it's the best one.
On Amazon?
It's on
Paramount Plus.
Mm-hmm.
But you can get to it through Amazon.
Oh, I was gonna say, who wants to send me their login?
Yeah.
Not on camera. I want to say this: the first thing that hooked me about it, the very first episode was like super violent, and I was like, oh, here we go, another one. But the scene, there are a couple scenes where they show up in public in the armor, where the Spartans, or they're in the full-on armor, and they walk into. And that's exactly what it was like when one of those dudes walked in. Everybody perked right up and behaved. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, because they were impressive. The Mars armor, when somebody stood in front of you in armor on Mars, one of the soldiers was in their armor. It was like looking at somebody that was wearing a Learjet around them. It was absolutely, and you were in awe of that. And the series shows that immediately. And I get the same kind of like flutter from it, because it literally is that badass. The armor suits that they had on are literally were that good.
But and then it evolves into, it's not so action packed the whole time, but it's really like detailed about how they actually pull this stuff off. And like, and it's about, you know, super soldier getting mind wiped and get his memories back and realizing he has implants. And it's pretty insane. It's major disclosure.
Yeah, I was happy that it wasn't going to be nothing but a bloodbath every show. So we're on a show. We're a guy and a girl that have a show on another show talking about a show.
Yeah. Exactly.
I want to check it out though. I'm so out of the loop. So I learned about these things.
I still need to watch it. I haven't watched it yet.
It's like the people on TV who are watching TV who are watching TV.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, anyway, I think like this, we were just talking about disclosure. This is how it's happening. I mean, it's amazing to me. You know, people are going to watch that and think, oh, another sci-fi show. But when you're into this topic, it's like, holy cow. And then I feel like it needs to be rewatched. There's a lot of little Easter eggs throughout there, but not just that. You know, Star Trek is another one, but across the board right now, we're getting stuff like that. We're just entering a new time, something we've never seen before. And I'm, you know, as dark as it is, I'm excited to see where it goes, because I know this is only temporary.
Everybody's always wanted change, and now that we're on the cusp of it, we're seeing a lot of, like, the economy is totally screwing up right now. We're seeing a lot of things like birth pains, but one thing's for sure, we're going to get some big changes no matter what in the near future. Like, you can see the world changing greatly around us, whether we like it or not. So disclosure has got to be close. I mean, you know, whatever. I hate hyping it up like I'm a salesman or something, but I mean, you can kind of see, I mean, if you pay attention to what way the wind's blowing, you can see that, you know what I mean? It's heading in that direction. Like, there's major things happening.
It is.
And people, they already have disclosed.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing. You know, we didn't really talk about this at the conference, but I wanted to. That the report came out. They had a 1,500-page report that nobody can find, that was released at the Pentagon a couple weeks ago. That had, the first report was on UAP phenomenon. The second report was on abduction phenomenon, about people having mysterious pregnancies, radiation burns, and phenomenon from. So that there's like an 8-page report that came out, like a summary, but I can't find the actual one. And the weekend that came out was the Will Smith smacking Chris Rock. So it was not on the news. It was, everybody was appalled by that. And then Will Smith started crying afterwards, which is what MK Ultra people do after they attack somebody, is they emotionally break down, and that was what Will did. So that was like that was a read on that. But it was like, that came out, so dominated the news. So that report about the strange pregnancies and radiation burns from people, abductees, that is real and credible, from the Pentagon committee, just fell to the wayside, and now you can't even find it. So they are disclosing. We have gotten disclosure. They are telling us about it. They're doing it in a sneaky, underhanded way at the moment.
And
finally, after years and years of ridicule and putting people in mental institutions and calling, you know, cover stories and lying, they're now, oh, by the way, all this is all real the whole time.
Yeah,
you know, it's like,
oh, there's more.
I mean, at least it's happening, but it's just crazy.
I just shared an article. Whoever follows me on Facebook might have seen this. Subterranean reptilians killed 15 coal miners. Declassified document reveals shocking intel. It's actually a really good article. And it, first of all, it starts off, it gives the history of reptilians throughout all the ancient cultures in India, Egypt, where they're depicted. And it builds a backstory for them. And then it goes all the way up to this incident that was classified. It was these 15 coal miners that were literally attacked by the reptilian-looking creatures. And it's an official report, and it's finally out. Like, this type of stuff is just slipping through the cracks, you know.
Yep.
Jackie, your turn. You've been quiet for a while.
Get her.
Well,
start talking.
I was just thinking, I wonder where that was and how long it takes before they declass. Isn't it like 20 years or something?
It's like 20 or 25 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about that. And then, you know, the thing that people always say to me is like, don't you think if this were really happening, that we would all know about it? And I'm always like, no, but if you go look, you will know about it. It's like when somebody, you know, the film crew asked Tony, what would you say to somebody who said, I don't believe any of this? And my response is, that's not my fault. It's not my fault. If you don't believe any of this, and you have the blinders on of like, well, we would know about it. That is actually programming. And I feel sorry for you. And you're really not my problem, as cold-hearted as that sounds. So I was just thinking about all these D-class. I mean, you can find stuff about cloning from the 50s. The plans that we have now for cloning organs that we might do, they were the plan openly 50 years ago, and it's been going on, and it is going on. I almost went into embryos. I'm not going to go into embryos. I'm not going to talk about the millions of frozen embryos in the United States right now with no regulation around what happens to them if you do not implant. I'm not going into that. Or that we are openly hybridizing humans and animals in like 37 states. It's just when people say something like, well, surely we would know about it. And I'm like, this is going on right under your nose and you don't know, and you no longer get to say that, because if you don't know about it, it is officially on you, because this information is find outable. You can always find it. How was that? How'd I do with my turn on the mic?
That was great. And I agree with you 100%. It's all there. Like disclosure has been happening consistently over the years. It just gets swept under the rug.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm actually in the middle of putting together a timeline of events that have happened that we can prove to combat this fake report we're about to get, because what they're doing with that is trying to rewrite history and erase history, forget about all of these events that we have documented. So while they're putting out their fake report, we need to be putting out reminders, because, you know, we talk about this stuff and it's old news to us. For a lot of this stuff is old news to a lot of us, but there's an entire new wave of people who don't know anything about this. So we have to like go back to square one sometimes and make sure that content is available for them before they get programmed with the fake soft disclosure that we're certainly going to get, because whatever type of disclosure we get from the government is not going to be accurate. Why would we expect the people who have been suppressing it and lying to us the entire time to give us an honest disclosure about what they're doing? If they do that, they'll be blackmailing themselves, because they all have blood on their hands and they're not going to tell them themselves. So we just have to do this, you know?
Even aside from these disclosure reports that come, it's like, you're not even aware, going back to the, you know, reptilian creatures attacking the miners, or people aren't even aware what's going on right now on Earth, under our noses, so to speak.
Right.
They have no idea what's going on with experimentation, cloning, hybridization, just no idea. You know, okay, I'm just going to say this. Do you guys have female friends between 30 and 38? And if so, how many of them have talked to you about freezing their eggs lately? It's like a big push. It's like everyone's pushing it. You've got to go freeze your eggs. You've got to go freeze your eggs. And there's no regulation around what happens to the eggs that you don't end up using in the end. They're given to science. Nobody's asking questions about this. This is going on right now. It's in the medical system. It's with insurance companies, and it's being pushed on women, which I know because I'm 37 and having a baby. And I'm not even looking at disclosure documents anymore. I'm like, we've got to look at what's going on like right underneath our noses, because it is way beyond anything you could possibly imagine. The truth is always way beyond the weirdness of fiction, and people aren't aware. And we're sitting around waiting for documents of reports happening off planet. And I'm like, the same amount of weirdness is going on planet. That's my, that's my rant.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of, go ahead. Oh, that's been my argument for a lot of this intel we're getting about what's happening in space right now and stuff. I'm like, you know, it's great but how much is that actually benefiting us? Like, we don't even know what's going on in our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Like, we don't even know what's going on here. And which is another theory I had, why the conference was cloudy the whole time. Maybe it's because we need to stop looking up. We need to start communicating with everyone who's around us and stop trying to communicate with them so much, because this is what we need to be focused on here. And, you know, that's just my theory. Maybe it was cloudy at the conference, so it would force us to communicate, you know,
or to just to keep us together. And because if it would have been nice every day, like you said, everyone would have been outside doing stuff separately, spread out. So it kind of kept us all in the community, kind of huddled together, which was awesome.
Right.
And the bonfires were amazing, you know.
So for the last 50 years, conspiracy theorists, people always, who's in charge, who's running us, who's running the world, and who are we beholden to? And it's like, it's the bankers, it's the people that are printing the money, or it's the cabal, it's this or that. But really, it turns out the real tell is the media, because they're doing a bang up job of programming more than half of the people to believe absolute BS. And you can see it once you understand that it's programming. When you watch, I turn on the news just to see
100%.
what the lie is for today. And when you think about, it makes me think about what Jackie said, that lately we have the Roe versus Wade thing. And I got into a big argument about the California, how they changed their laws recently, that there's no punishment really for aborting a 2 weeks after it's born, 9 months and 2 weeks. You can actually not get in trouble for killing a fetus.
Insane.
And so nobody believed me. And so some friends, some people I work with looked it up and came in and just today was like, oh my God, I didn't know, Tony. And what they're doing with abolishing the Roe versus Wade, what's going on right now, throws it back to the states to set their own laws so that California isn't going to catch any heat for that. So right now with Roe versus Wade, it's a federal issue. So California is on the hook for passing these stupid laws that don't punish anybody. There's actually no incentive for not, it's actually, they didn't legalize it. They just got rid of any punishment. There's no crime if a girl gives birth at 9 months and abandons her baby to death. There's absolutely no crime there, even though frankly, that's murder, no matter how you put it. That's not abortion. It's not your body's rights at, you know, it is at not, we're talking even outside of the body.
You can't even debate that as not.
Yeah, it's undebatable, but it's under and the people are banging a drum because the media told them to, saying that my body, my choice. And so that's why they're getting, once they get rid of the Roe versus Wade stuff, California is off the hook for this incredible. I can't believe that people can sleep at night trying to legislate that, making that kind of thing legal. And you can look it all up, right? I'm not trying to be political, but this is an example of how powerful the media is right now.
Right. And obviously the goal behind that agenda is to normalize everything they've already been doing behind the scenes. So whenever it does come out, there's already a law for it that makes it legal, right?
Yes.
And that with the pedophilia, child pornography, all the stuff that we're seeing now that they're trying to normalize it, and like, it's absolutely insane.
How can there be any argument that someone could be attracted to children and that not be illegal, because the child is incapable of making a sexual decision. Exactly. The child is nothing but a victim across the board. So how can that even be debatable in any manner, way, shape, or form? But the fact of the matter is that's what these people have been doing for thousands of years. And they have their own sexual things. You know, there's like a black magic involved with it, with sexuality that they've been doing. And so they want to make it legal so that they can because disclosure is coming whether you like it or not. Jackie, the answer that I had when they asked me that, remember, what do you say to people that don't believe what you're saying? And I said, I don't care. My answer on camera was, I don't care if you believe it or not, because it's coming whether you like it or not. There's nothing you can do to stop disclosure from happening.
Yeah, just because you don't know about it,
you're going to believe it here in a minute. In a short time, you're going to believe it whether you like it or not. So
exactly,
I really don't care anymore if they believe me or think I'm whatever they are. Doesn't matter.
No,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, what did they say? The truth doesn't care about your feelings.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen no matter how you feel.
Your beliefs are irrelevant to the truth. The truth is the truth. So it's your job to correlate your beliefs with the truth, but it's not my job to convince you. It's
another tell by that we are on the path to disclosure, because the people that have been criminals all along are scrambling to not be criminals after a disclosure happens. They're actually working very hard at it, and we're seeing these, excuse my language, batshit crazy movements coming forward, saying, you know, you can be it's a minor attracted person. Come on, man. You know, and then the abortion thing.
They're trying to cover their asses and do damage control and shred document. They're doing everything. They're freaking out right now because, like you said, disclosure it's happening, whether they like it or not, whether anyone likes it or not. It's all the truth is coming out.
So it sounds alarming. And I would say this, I think about this. I think that if you're alarmed by this and thinking that they're going to get away with it, the reality is that there are way more people alive than not that have morals, that there's no way that could stand. And no matter what law you pass, you know what I'm saying? The majority, there's just no way that people are going to swallow that. So no matter what happens.
There's such a minority. They need the mouthpiece of the mainstream media, because if they don't have that, like, we are the majority. Like, we totally crush them in numbers, and their game is over. You know, that's why, you know, you tune into the media and see what they're lying about. But it would be nice to tune in one day and see that change, because that's when we know things are finally looking on the upside.
It's like keeping our minds programmed and under their control is so crucial to them, and that's why they push so hard with the media and with the programming, because they lose that, they lose everything. Because the second we start thinking for ourselves and acting from our true nature more, and not believing just everything because the media tells it to us, they lose control. And that's happening. It's happening more and more every day now, and they're freaking out about it because they're like, oh shit, losing control of the sheep. You know, they're not buying our bullshit anymore.
And it all started here with a tiny podcast of a couple guys.
Right.
Middle America, starting the truth and watching it spread. So here we are. So, I mean, don't underestimate the power of media, what we're doing right now. I mean, it's not in the millions, but it could be very soon. And so, I mean, they're getting away with great things with media they've established. I mean, don't underestimate the power of what you're doing here. Like things like the conference, what happened last week at the conference is going to echo for years. You know, that conference really was one of a kind and the first of a kind on the subject matter. Conferences out west, and I'm not going to, you know what I mean, point fingers, and I'm not saying this I hope I'm not saying a bad connotation, but people that throw conferences are trying to sell tickets. They're trying to fill seats. And so they kind of threw subject matter at the wall to see what stuck. They were like, you know, this guy's this and this guy's that, and they're throwing all this subject matter in there. There was, you know, they had architects in there and air conditionings for sale, and then UFOs. Like they had all this stuff on. They just wanted to sell seats. Really, they're trying to sell seats. These guys are making a living on it. So you're doing this for the truth. You're doing this for because we're on the mission here, you know, to try to disclose, and that's kind of always what I've stuck to. You know, the first things first, and that's the mission. We're trying to move along disclosure to try to get the truth out of what's something that's been heinously held back from us all. And that's what you guys are doing. And what I'm saying is your conference, because of that, has a much more, you know what I mean, a heavier footprint than any other conference that I've seen that has a scattered set of subjects. To have all the only subject matter like this about the secret space program was huge. And I'm telling you, it's cast a huge shadow over all the others to come, because this information is that profound. And to have it all over the place, conferences all over the place, all this other stuff, like, and I don't want to take anything away from the other subjects, like spirituality, healing, all of it. I mean, you know what I mean? Like all the alternative healing things and the therapies, like I get it. That's all awesome. But we need, you know, ufology is very fragmented and diversified by design, by the opposition. And the fact is the gateway to ufology is the secret space program. Needs to be dealt with. It needs to be normalized, and ufology is going to follow right inside. It's all going to come in line. It's all the same thing, and spirit and psychic ability and spirituality. It's all in the same wheelhouse. It's just that they've kept it apart. And you guys really made a big, I mean, like groundbreaking conference to bring it all together. You know what I mean? In an order. That's what I mean. It needs to be arranged in order so that normies can swallow it. And because that's going to happen. I mean, because it's going to happen, and we don't want it to be a train wreck when it does. So,
well, thank you for saying that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for saying that.
It's easy. It's the truth.
Right. All right,
Yeah,
Jackie. You have to top that compliment now, Jackie. No, I'm joking.
No, I love that Tony said that though, because they're all about every component of that: ufology, secret space program, psychic abilities, off-planet activity. It really is just it forces you to break down the lie we've been told about our history. I mean, Earth history, really. And because of that, the religions that have come in with Earth history and this very limited, narrow scope that most of us accepted at least the first half of our lives. And then when you can let that go, all of this other stuff floods in at the same time, just like Tony was saying. I love that you said that, Tony.
Right. And I just want to I wanted to do this at the beginning, but I butchered the intro. So I want to thank everybody who's listening, who was involved, all the vendors, everyone who helped, all the other presenters, for even helping us pull this off. You know, it wouldn't have happened if everyone didn't play their part. Exactly. Even the attendees, like everyone was there doing something that contributed to the experience. So it's not just us, it was everybody there. So
you guys made this happen. It's not just us. We just facilitated it. Yeah.
And you guys, while I'm at it, I'm going to show you guys that picture of that UFO. So it's funny because it looks like an old, like 1950s pixelated UFO, but this was caught over the river one night, and it's really hard to tell. Actually, it's interesting. The smaller photo looks better than the bigger one, but I'm going to share my screen here anyway, and you can see it for yourself. Do you guys see that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think I saw. Someone showed me this picture.
Right. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Catherine Mallory, I think, took this picture, but it was clouded the whole time, and yeah, you could see right up here. And there's no lights in the sky. If you were there, there's no lights in the sky in that direction at all.
That's not a plane. Yeah, that's
right.
Nothing else.
Anyway,
that was somebody getting dropped off. That was somebody's ride.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna openly say this, and I mean it with all my heart. It's my little secret desire to one day just show up in one like that. Just pull up in a disc. You know, some people want a Lamborghini or a mansion. I wanted my own disc to ride around in. I make no apologies. It's a fantasy of mine.
Well, I mean, dude, if we can bypass the airlines, I think everyone will share that same dream. I mean,
hopefully once the technology starts rolling out, that'll be part of it. You know, we'll have our own gravity craft.
If anybody's listening up there, if the feds are listening, you can put me in for ambassador work or something. Throw me on a disc, man. So I'll be on time. I promise.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. This was a lot of fun. I had no idea where the conversation was going to go, but it was awesome. It was really awesome. Thank you guys for sharing everything, and thanks for taking the time to come out and do this with us tonight.
And thanks for being part of the conference and making it phenomenal. And
right.
It's awesome. It was a lot of energy, and I had a great time. I absolutely loved it. There was a bit of a hangover, and it was like a once in a lifetime thing. I really loved it being there. I hope you do it again, and I hope that everybody I saw there I get to meet again, because it was a family atmosphere. It was an absolute blast, and I can say that about most conferences, that the crowd is the real star of the show. The people that show up are really amazing every single time. So I hope I see everybody again. I just absolutely loved it, and I was honored to speak. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, it's good you said that, because my sister came. This is her first conference. She's new to all this stuff, very new. She came for a half a day. She saw you, Jackie, and Laura Eisenhower, but she didn't plan on coming the whole day, because she just thought, a conference, I'm going to come and sit in for these presenters, and she thought it was like this very formal thing. She had no idea what it actually was. And she was like, if I would have known it was this, I would have planned accordingly. She didn't want to leave. She it was hard for her to leave.
That's awesome.
But that's what people don't understand. Like, so many people are so fast or focused on the presenters. I'm like, guys, the presenters are it's important, but you don't understand the magic of it. Happens
so much more. Yeah. It's the people and the conversations.
Right.
Meeting new people and stuff. Yeah.
Anyway, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Christina Love. I saw you gave us a little donation earlier. Thank you for that. Thank you to the moderators. And thank you to everyone who made it to the conference and helped make it exactly what it was. Don't forget, we have some OMNIA patches. If you guys are looking to protect yourself from any harmful EMFs, you can get 10% off of those with promo code TRUTH, all caps. Hopewell Farm CBD, they were a vendor at the conference, and a lot of people really enjoyed their stuff. I don't know if they still have their 420 sale going on or not, so I hope they don't get mad at me for giving out that code if it's not active, but JTT 420 gives you 20% off of their merchandise. And then we have just partnered up with our friend Mason Fury, who makes these amazing orgonite pyramids or orgone pyramids. Merlin's Lab is the name of his business, and you can get 10% off, maybe 20% off. I don't remember exactly what the percentage is with promo code Solstice, and all of those links are below in the description. I think I covered everything, and all of our Teespring merch is 20% off on Teespring with promo code 20 and back. And this conference t-shirt is back up there after it was already removed twice by some haters, but I put it up there again, so hopefully
we'll see.
Hopefully it's still there. It's insane because you can report a shirt on Teespring. Well, somebody kept reporting this shirt and they kept taking it down so people couldn't buy it prior to the conference. But it's back up there again until somebody reports it again, I guess. But
I wonder who could have done that.
Right. I mean,
it was Tony.
It wasn't me. Yeah.
Tony's.
Well, I want to tell you that I wanted to wear it tonight when you asked me on mine. Because I have one of them and it's already been stolen by my daughter. So
they're so soft. You guys picked a good fabric. I have to say that they're so soft. It will become your favorite shirt.
I did that on purpose.
I agree.
It costs a little more, but I hate when you go and buy a shirt that you're just not going to wear. You can't wear. Yeah. So I wanted, like, if you're going to spend your money on it, you might as well be comfortable in something you want to wear. You know.
Good job, Tyler. You did good.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I agree with that.
It's for the little bit amount more, it's totally worth it. You know?
Totally worth it. Yeah.
Anyway, enough about the t-shirts. Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And I'm not even going to be able to end this because I'm not on the right screen right now. So hang on. We will see you next time. Have a great evening, and we love all you guys.
Good night, guys.